Hello, ninth grade. I know that you were already able to see the correct answers for propaganda, identify the type, but I thought that if you had put something down and didn't understand why it wasn't correct, it might help for me to give the explanation. And on a lot of these, there's actually more than one type, so I'll try to go over a couple of those. I just usually put down the one that was the most prevalent. Okay, so let's get going. So A. Obviously, you've got the McDonald's sign, and y'all may remember seeing this PowerPoint before we started distance learning, but we're going back through it because this unit is going to cover propaganda, so I just want to go back over everything for you. So this one's saying McDonald's, hamburgers, billions and billions served. Obviously, that's bandwagon. They're saying, billions of people have eaten McDonald's, so you should too, basically, is what they're trying to get across to you there, okay? So that one's really, that's about the only thing that one can be, is bandwagon. Okay? B, is this tomorrow? Now, this is one of the older propaganda posters from World War II. And so, as you can see from this one, the primary thing is fear. Okay? Because you see the flag burning and soldiers beating up American citizens and all that. So primarily it's fear. Now you can also call it name calling though, because it says America under communism, and so that's especially in this country a largely perceived negative concept, and so you could say this was name calling as well. But the primary propaganda there is fear. Okay. C, this is from a training manual that during wartime was one of the pictures that was in there. It says, don't let your loved ones mourn for you, and you see what appears to be a wife and a child crying, and then up in that little cartoon picture it looks like a soldier who appears to be dead and has maybe his pack in front of him. So that one again is fear, because it's trying to convince the soldiers to pay attention to the training by fearing that if they don't, they could wind up dead, and their loved ones would be mourning for them. Okay, next up we have D. 2 is a number, 1 is a number. Therefore, 2 equals 1. Well, obviously that's wrong, so that's a logical fallacy. Okay? It's where they are going through and trying to, use logic or what appears to be logic, but coming up with the wrong answer. So, classic case of logical fallacy. Next up, E. Gatorade always wins, and you see the picture of Gatorade with number 1 is the number crossing the finish line, and then there's 2 what appears to be like maybe Dasani water bottles falling back behind there and spilling everywhere. So definitely card stacking, because you've got Gatorade looking much better than the 2 kind of darker water bottles that are both falling and spilling. But you could also say glittering generalities, because you've got the word wins there as well. So, they're trying to have that also sway us. And that's true with a lot of propaganda. Usually there's one type that's most prevalent, but they will often combine types of propaganda, because it's like the more they can pile in there, the more they can try to influence you, right? So, primarily card stacking there, but you could also say glittering generalities. Next up, F, that's Danica Patrick, who's a famous NASCAR racer. So obviously this one's testimonial. Remember what we talked about. You cannot have somebody famous in your ad or anything like that without paying them. If you use their image without their permission, you're going to get sued. So testimonial is where someone is getting paid. And so that's certainly what's going on here. Okay? Next up is G. That's Usher on a MasterCard. Again, he's famous. He's getting paid for this ad. So that would also classify as testimonial. Now it's kind of hard to see, but you might be able to kind of see the word success right there. So, with that, you could say, possibly glittering generalities. Because that's a virtue that we admire, success. So you could say that one too, but the main one is testimonial. Okay, next up is, oops, I skipped one. Okay, somehow I didn't get the H on there, but H is fear. Okay, so that one should have been fear for H. No, H is on here. Y'all, I'm losing my mind. Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, so H is fear because it's asking which would you rather have, a cholesterol test or a final exam? And so the final exam they're talking about here is an autopsy because that is obviously a dead body with a toe tag. That's what they put on them in the morgue, covered by the sheet. And so the final exam they're going to have is not like a test in school, it's their autopsy. And so this one is using fear to try to convince you should go get a cholesterol test before you die. So definitely fear there, right? Okay, next up is I, Survivor heroes versus villains. And then as you can see, you've got the words return, revenge, and redemption there. So this one could be considered name-calling because of the villains and glittering generalities because of the heroes, right? And you can see how they're kind of presented too. The villains are looking like they're ready to fight, and the heroes are all standing in that classic Superman pose. So name-calling, glittering generalities, possibly even some transfer mixed in there with that. Okay, J, it can happen here. So let's nuke them first. Another poster from a long time ago. So this one obviously is fear. They're showing what they were talking about is how, you know, England and a lot of places across Europe during World War II underwent all kinds of bombing raids, and it destroyed a lot of property, and so they're saying it could happen in America too, and so that's why you've got the picture of this house and car that have obviously been bombed. And so it's encouraging the use of nuclear weapons, which is terrifying. So that one is definitely fear. Okay, next up, militant men drink Coca-Cola, the drink that fights back. Which is kind of funny. I'm not sure I want my Coca-Cola, you know, fighting back with me. But this one is pretty obviously transfer. Militant just means military. And you've got the picture of this guy here in the military drinking Coca-Cola and smiling about it. So they're trying to get you to transfer the respect that you have for the military to purchasing Coca-Cola. Okay, so that's a pretty cut and dried example of transfer. All right. Next up, let's see who says Deal is for real. And Governor Deal is a former governor of Georgia. That's him right there. And so you've got all these various people who are all, you know, obviously endorsing him. So that could count as bandwagon because they're showing that all these other people are already behind him. So you should get behind him too. So that's probably the main one. You could possibly say testimonial. I mean, they're not really getting paid, but people don't usually get paid to endorse political candidates. But, you know, they're obviously okay with this endorsement. They had to get their permission for it. So you could say testimonial as well, but also definitely bandwagon. Okay, M, this is the cover of a book by Ann Coulter, who is a famous political pundit. If Democrats had any brains, they'd be Republican. Obviously, that's name-calling because it's using Democrats as, you know, a bad term, but it's also logical fallacies, right? Because obviously, you know, it's trying to imply that Democrats are all stupid, and that's not the case. So that one can be both name-calling and logical fallacies, okay? Next up is N. We see the little penguin there, and it says penguins are black and white. Some old TV shows are black and white. Therefore, some penguins are old TV shows. And it says at the bottom, logic, another thing that penguins aren't very good at. Kind of gives it away, doesn't it? That one's logical fallacies. Okay? Next up, you might not have known who this was. That is George W. Bush, so he obviously is a former president. But we see him riding in his pickup truck, drinking maybe a Coca-Cola. He's got his jeans and his cowboy hat on, and he does own a farm. So this was taken during his time as president, but, you know, when he would go on vacation, sometimes he would go to his farm and all of that. So this one is pretty obviously plain folks because he was the president, but he's trying to look just like your average, you know, American there and trying to appeal to Americans that way. Like, hey, I'm just like you. You know, I'm driving my pickup truck, got my jeans on. So that one is plain folks. Okay. Next up is the cover of Newsweek from whenever Mitt Romney was running for president. So this cover of Newsweek made a huge splash. Obviously, because it says in huge letters, Romney, the wimp factor. Is he just too insecure to be president? So obviously that's name calling. Using the words wimp, that definitely has negative connotations, and even insecure does as well. So pretty obvious name calling there for that one. Okay, next up was from a local election, not around here, but a local election. David, why are you voting to hurt our community? Gillard's gambling laws won't work. So that, you could say a couple of different things. You could say name calling, sort of, but primarily that one I would put as loaded language, because obviously if you talk to this David Gillard, he's going to have a different spin on this, right? He's going to have a different side to the story. So that one could count as loaded language, because that's where you can take one issue and present it in a negative or a positive light. And this one they're obviously presenting in a negative light. Okay? And then last one, step into your place. And so you see all these people who look like, normal citizens who appear to have just regular jobs, stepping into line and then turning into soldiers. So that one is bandwagon. It's kind of basically saying everybody else is working, to join the military or support the military or whatever, and so you should as well, because you see the line just kind of like stretches out endlessly. So definitely counts as bandwagon there. Okay? And so again, you did have the answers listed at the end, but hopefully, even though it was brief, hopefully hearing my explanation helped a little bit if there were any you were uncertain on. If there's still any that you're like, I don't understand that, feel free to email me. Okay? Y'all have a good day.